Hey there, everybody. It's Mike DiLisio. Today I'm going to be taking a look back at my top 10 most anticipated games of 2022. It's now early 2023 at the time of recording of this video, and so I thought that I would look back at the games that I was most looking forward to last year. Of those 10 games that I did a video on, that I will link to that in this video, 7 of the 10 actually were released last year. Now, this is something that happens when, with the rise of crowdfunding and Kickstarter, oftentimes games that are scheduled to be released at a particular time get delayed for any number of reasons. There have been even more delays than normal on the crowdfunding front because of supply chain issues that were happening and things along those lines. But of those 3 games that did not come in, I was able to play one of them. I'll get to that in a minute. So let's just start right off, and I'm going to do them in the order that they were most anticipated by me. So my number 10 most anticipated game from 2022 was Resurgence. Resurgence is a post-apocalyptic kind of a bag building game from designer Stan Kordonski. And this is one that I've only had a chance to play it once solo. So I don't have a fully formed opinion by any means. It's something that I want to play more, both multiplayer and solo, but I will say it left a very good first impression. It is a game that seems to have a nice mixture of crunchy, kind of thinky elements, but without being overwhelming in a rule set. The rules are relatively straightforward, and I liked what it was doing, but I definitely need to play it more before I can have a full impression, and certainly before a review, which may be forthcoming. My number 9 most anticipated game from 2022 was Trekking Through History. And wow, this one was fantastic. It knocked it out of the park. I ended up reviewing Trekking Through History and rating it a 9, giving it a seal of excellence. This actually would have been, or was, my number 11 ranked game of all of 2022. It just missed my top 10. And I'll be honest with you, that was an agonizing decision. I kept going back and forth on whether it should be in the top 10 or not. It's so close. It's so much on the edge, but just a terrific game. The third in a line of games, you have the Trekking Through the National Parks, Trekking Across the World, Trekking the World, and now Trekking Through History. This is this is my favorite theme of the 3. It's my favorite of those 3 games. I think they've just gotten better and better. I like all 3 of the games, but Trekking Through History is fantastic. A really lovely family weight game. Very welcoming, very easy to teach and learn. Just a fantastic production all the way around. My number 8 most anticipated game of 2022 was Ostia. This is coming from publisher Uchibakoya, which produced another game that I really like a whole lot called Aqua Garden. Ostia is a much larger game by the same designer as Aqua Garden, and it's got a little bit of a feel of Trajan, the Stefan Feld game, if you've ever played that, in that it has a bit of almost a Mancala type of a mechanism that drives the game. But it's a lighter game than Trajan. It's not a light game. I would consider this to be a midweight Euro game, but a big, beautiful, lavish production, which quite honestly, I'm not used to seeing from Japanese publishers. They tend to go a little bit smaller and more economical with their component use. But Ostia is a big, lavish, audacious production and a really solid game too. This has not yet been reviewed. I will be reviewing it here in the future, but just suffice to say that I have a very favorable opinion of Ostia. My number 7 most anticipated game of 2022 was Fall of the Mountain King. This was a follow-up from a different designer, but a follow-up to In the Hall of the Mountain King. So essentially, it's really just a game that has the same thematic kind of elements to it, but it's a very different game from In the Hall of the Mountain King. Fall of the Mountain King is a area control game at heart, and it uses a really clever action selection system, which to me is the most impressive part of the game. The area majority, area control, is relatively standard, nothing really innovative that I've seen other than you are also, in addition to kind of competing with other players around the table, you have non-player characters that come in, and that's a nice little twist. I ended up rating this game a 7.5. It was something that I absolutely recommend. I like it at this point a little bit less than in the Hall of the Mountain King, but it could improve with more plays. I still do want to play it some more and have enjoyed it quite a bit. My number 6 most anticipated game of 2022 was a game that, if I'm quite honest, knew was likely to not be released. I was holding out hope, but it was not released. It's Unconscious Mind. This is a game coming from Fantasia, the publisher that released Endless Winter, Paleo Americans, which was my number 1 game of 2022. So this is a publisher that I am keeping a very, very close eye on. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, one of the games that were not released is one that I have played, and Unconscious Mind is that game. I was able to get in a demo of the game at Essen in 2022, and while it was not a finalized version of the game, the designer and the developers of the game were telling me that they're still working on some things, making some little adjustments and tweaks here and there. The core elements of the game were pretty much locked in, and let me tell you, those core elements are very, very intriguing, very impressive design to me. I was very impressed. I am very much looking forward to Unconscious Mind, especially I obviously was before, and I think it's even more anticipated now that I've actually played it, seen what the game is about, and boy, it's gonna be something. My number 5 most anticipated game of 2022 was Monsters on Board. This is a very adorable kind of the theme of it is fantastic. The idea of Monsters on Board is that monsters are throwing a big party and they want to have their favorite beverage to serve, which is spook juice. And the way you get spook juice is from the screams of humans. So they go out into a town, Startleton, and they scare up people to get their spook juice to take back to their party. Fantastic theme. The theme doesn't come through a whole lot in the game, if I'm quite honest. It has some thematic elements, but it's really a very crunchy Euro game with a lot more mechanically going on than I think that I was expecting. I rated it a 7. This was reviewed and rated a 7. Now, I'm going to say this, though. The game would have been rated higher if not for some very unfortunate production issues. I'm not going to go into all of them here. If you wanted to watch the review, you can see that there. But the gameplay itself is very good. I really like Monsters on Board. I just had some very significant issues with some production decisions and what I feel like maybe were some errors made. And so that did knock the score down a bit. But the gameplay itself, very solid. My number 4 most anticipated game of 2022 was Ice. And this is one of those games that unfortunately was crowdfunded and not yet released. It is scheduled to be released this year. I am a backer of the game, and so I'm getting regular updates. The pictures that I've seen, I can only report on what I've seen. The pictures that I've seen look very enticing. This is a game that looks like it has a pretty complex and complicated production process because it has a central board that is layered in multiple layers, and you're pulling, I think, tiles off of that. So not a simple production. Probably has led to some of the delays, but I'm fingers crossed that I'm going to get a chance to play Ice in 2023. My number 3 most anticipated game from 2022 was Wild Serengeti. This is a game that has been released, and I have played it many times. I've taught it and played it a number of times. And while I did not do a full review on the channel, that was something that Tom and a couple of his kids did, I did make it part of my rapid fire roundup. And so you can find out a little bit about my thoughts there. I rate it currently a 7.5. It's a game that I like quite a bit. There are a couple of issues that I have with it, primarily around the length of the game. I feel like, especially at a player count higher than 2, it may get close to overstaying its welcome. It is definitely not a short game, but the production is gorgeous. The theming is fantastic. You are playing as a nature videographer, and you're trying to line up these beautiful shots of animals, and you're doing this by playing cards to manipulate animals around the board and getting them to try to follow scenes. It's a worker placement that allows you to move the animals, not the cards necessarily, but a really, really beautiful production, a charming, charming game. But A couple of things I would have loved to have seen that would have brought it higher, but still 7.5, something I recommend and enjoy. My number 2 most anticipated game of 2022 was Flamecraft. Well, Flamecraft has definitely been released, and it has made quite a splash in the board gaming scene, I would say. It's a game that's getting a lot of buzz, a lot of love. I have rated the game. I rated it an 8.5 at the time of review. I may be higher than that today. I actually gave it the number 5 ranking in all of 2022. It was my number 5 game of 2022. Flamecraft is a game that I think is not only adorable and charming, which it clearly is. They were leaning into the cute factor, which quite honestly has probably pushed it away from some people that may actually enjoy the game because they think it's maybe just a children's game. There's more depth involved in Flamecraft than may first appear from the aesthetics of the game. It's not a heavy game. I would call it a mid-light to mid-weight Euro game, but it does some really clever things with resource management and making areas that you travel to with your dragons get better and better over time, contract fulfillment, and of course a beautiful production. Flamecraft, I think, has fulfilled the promise that it set in its kind of lead up to release. And finally, my number 1 most anticipated game for 2022 was Bardwood Grove, which very unfortunately has not been released yet. This is one that it's scheduled to come out. I'm not exactly sure what all of the delays have been. I am a backer of the project. The updates have been there, so I am very confident. And with this publisher, I'm also very confident that the game's going to be released. It's just a bit behind schedule. I'm still very much looking forward to it. I love this theme. The designer is the designer of one of my favorite games of all time, Merchant's Cove. So I am very hopeful that this game is going to be worth the wait. I certainly hope so. So there you go. Those were my top 10 most anticipated games for 2022 and my thoughts on them now, the ones that I have played and the 3 that I have not. So looking forward to 2023. We're going to have a anticipated games list for that coming up soon. But this was just a look back on my 2022. There you have it. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from Dice Tower headquarters.